My real horror story. This happened to me long ago, but I can still recall that day as clear as day. It's a bit long, but I'll try to simplify as possible. When I was young, maybe 5 or 6 years of age, my family moved over to Hungary from the UK due to my father's job requirements. In the early 1990s, when the dissolution of the Soviet Union had turned the Socialist Republic to liberal democracy, allowing large corporations finally to enter the country and establish a foothold in the land of opportunities. My father was from one of those companies. We bought a large mansion-like house in Budapest. The house was large with 4 rooms and a large front and backyard. I was told the house was considerably cheap compared to its large size. Our parents thought it was because the country was under communist rule that everything was so cheap. Few months had gone by and me and my sisters were getting settled in nicely. It was great having a huge backyard and school was fun. We were sent to one of those newly established American international schools, the ones that have Christian backings. Anyway, I was not really into religion and found the teachings of the Bible boring at most, but at least the hamburgers and pizzas were cheap. More weeks went by and we were now completely at home in our new house, but then things got weird really fast. I shared my room upstairs with my sister and we would talk ourselves to sleep every night. But one night we were both really tired from some vigorous backyard playing, so we fell asleep almost instantly that night. I was woken in the middle of the night looking for a glass of water. As I awoke, I took a glimpse towards my sister's bed that was on the other side of the room. Then I saw it. In the dark room on her bed, my sister was sitting up. I couldn't see her properly, only her shadowy silhouette. Before I could say anything to her, she lay back down. But it wasn't a normal laying down. She just slammed into her bed like you would when you are frustrated. Odd, I thought, but didn't give much thought to it. My need for a glass of water was a higher priority. But just before I got up from my bed, I saw her sit up again. She just sprung up. It was too weird and I froze. Then she slammed herself back down into the bed and then sprung up and again slammed down into her bed. Again and again. The bed shook, making squeaky noises every time she slammed into her bed. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I just lay still in my bed looking at my sister's shadow just sit up and lay down again. I don't know how long it had been. Seemed like hours. But she stopped. She sat there very still. Dark silhouette now seemed even darker and black. Then she slowly turned her head towards my bed. So I shut my eyes as hard as I could, hoping that this was all a bad dream. Moments pass and I muster the strength to open my eyes. I looked towards to my sister's bed and was met with a dark blacked out face fully turned towards me. Panic started to set in. My heart pounding mad and I wanted to scream, but my mouth was frozen shut by fear. Cold sweat built up and silence filled the room. Fear was overwhelming and I couldn't stand it. I had to do something because I thought I would suffocate at this rate. I don't know where I got the strength to do so, but I rushed out of my bed and ran towards her. I came up to my sister so fast, but the next minute I saw my sister laying down in her bed fast asleep, the dark shadow gone like mist. I frantically shook her awake. My sister woke up to my cries and shaking, confused and still half asleep. I told her what I saw and that we should probably make our way to our parents' room. But my sister left it off, saying it's not funny and she doesn't believe in supernatural stories. I had no choice but to go back to bed, as I wasn't about to let anything happen to my little sister. That night I couldn't sleep and watched my sister all through the night. Thankfully nothing happened through the rest of that night, but I couldn't shake off that eerie feeling that something was amiss. After that night, everything seemed out of place. The house that we were comfortable to run around in didn't look the same. There was something about it that gave me the creeps, and soon I was nagging my parents to move out. Of course, they just shrugged it off and said I watched too much science fiction and horror movies and they were getting to my head. Days pass and I was losing sight about the eerie feeling of the house. Life seemed to fall back into place and I almost forgot about that incident. But they were far from over. I woke up one morning from screams by my mother who just came out from her room that morning. She was looking at me. I was hanging from the side of the second floor staircase upside down like a bat. As soon as I came to my senses, my legs gave away and I would have fell headfirst if not for my father who had rushed out hearing my mother's screams. My father grabbed hold of my legs just as they were giving away. I was diagnosed of somnambulism or sleepwalking. The doctor said it was common in children and attributed them to sleeplessness and nightmares. My parents banned me from watching horror movies or any kind of contents that may fuel my nightmares. But after that day I kept on sleepwalking and every time would wake up hanging upside down from something. My parents were highly religious and became worried about it. Talk of exorcism and demonic possession were quickly brought up and I remember a priest visited us not long after. The priest first visited our room. He was in there for a good hour or so and cautioned us not to enter until he deemed it safe. When he came out there was an uneasy expression on his face. He started looking around and muttering something, maybe Latin, I wasn't sure. Then he eventually made his way downstairs again. Then he stopped and looked up. He was standing looking up at the ceiling with a face expression that chilled me. Something about his expression just said supernatural. The ceiling was located right beneath where our room was. He then motioned my parents over and spoke to them for some time. My parents' faces turned white and we all moved out and rented a hotel room that day. The next day my parents hired construction workers to tear down the ceiling located under our bedroom. They found a small trapdoor in the ceiling and when they opened it, they found a small bag of bones from some small animal, maybe chicken or something. But also inside the small compartment there was a small doll made of the same bones from the bag, hanging by a small thread upside down. Needless to say, my parents sold the house and we moved out immediately. We stayed in Hungary for another year and after that returned to the UK. My parents' religious belief and faith had tripled after that. As for me, I had strayed alien to Christianity. I am not an atheist and I still believe in God and all, but churches make me uneasy for some reason. I stopped going when I entered college and never been to one ever since. But that incident in Hungary had stopped me from not believing altogether. Something supernatural walks among us on this plane of existence, I am sure of that. My recent encounters also has led me to believe in the supernatural, but that is for another story. I found a box of classified files hidden inside an abandoned ranger station. I should not have read them. I have never posted anything like this before. I am not the kind of person who shares things on the internet. But I have been carrying something for almost 30 years and I cannot do it alone anymore. In 1996 I was working as a contractor in northern Arizona. Mostly repair work, cabins, fire towers, old ranger stations. The kind of jobs nobody else wanted because they were too far from anywhere and paid next to nothing. In October I got a call from a Park Service office asking if I could spend 2 weeks repairing a ranger station deep in the mountains. They said the place had been abandoned since the late 70s. Nobody told me why. The station was about 40 miles from the nearest paved road. No power, no phone line, just a dirt track through pine forest and canyon country. The building was worse than they described. Half the roof had collapsed. The walls were black with mold. Rat nests in everything. The place felt wrong from the moment I stepped inside. Not haunted. I do not believe in that. Just heavy, like the air had not moved in a very long time. On the third day I was pulling rotten shelving out of the station office. Behind the shelves I found a door. Narrow, set into the wall like it was built with the station and then covered up later. The hinges were rusted shut. I had to use a crowbar. Behind the door was a small room, no bigger than a pantry, no windows, concrete walls, which was strange because the rest of the station was timber frame. Someone had built this room differently on purpose. There was a metal desk, a broken chair, and on the floor, a wooden box. The box had no label, no lock. It was heavy. Inside were dozens of file folders, some typed on official Park Service letterheads, some handwritten on notebook paper, some just scraps folded and tucked in. The oldest file was dated 1931. The newest was from 1982. Over 50 years of reports, all hidden in the same room, all passed down from one head ranger to the next. And every single folder had the same stamp across the front. Red ink, block letters, do not file. I did not read them all that night. I read 5 or 6 sitting on the floor with a work lamp plugged into my generator. 5 or 6 was enough. They were incident reports that somebody had decided should not exist. Disappearances, hikers, campers, hunters, families, people who walked into the backcountry and did not come back, or who came back wrong, miles from where they should have been, confused, injured, unable to explain what happened, and the details kept repeating. Camps found intact, gear untouched, and the boots, always the boots, left behind in the tent or beside the bedroll, placed neatly, like the person had taken them off, set them down, and walked into the dark barefoot, not once, not twice, across decades, across different parks, different rangers writing the reports years apart, none of them knowing the others had seen the same thing, but someone knew. Someone collected these files and hid them behind a wall and stamped every one of them with the same words. I should have put the box back. I should have sealed the room and driven home. Instead, I loaded the box into my truck. Something happened on my last morning at that station. I woke up early, maybe 5:30. I stepped outside and looked down at the ground in front of the door. The dirt was soft. I had been tracking my own boot prints in and out for days. I knew what my prints looked like. These were not mine. They were bare feet. Bare footprints starting about 10 feet from the front door, not coming toward the station, leading away, toward the tree line at the edge of the clearing. They crossed the clearing in a straight line and disappeared into the trees. There were no prints coming back. I was 40 miles from the nearest road. I had not seen another person in 4 days. I finished the job. I did not sleep well, and when I drove out, the box was in the back of my truck. I never handed it over. I never told anyone what I found. Not until now. I have carried this box for almost 30 years. I have gone back to it dozens of times, read more of the files, compared them, found patterns that span decades and stretch across the entire country. The boots, the distances that do not make sense, the caves that nobody wants to talk about, and the people who tried to report what they saw and were quietly moved aside. People are still going missing, every year, the same way, in the same kinds of places. I have started recording myself reading through these files, all of them, in order. I need there to be a record that cannot be stamped and buried. You can find the recordings. I do not know if anyone will listen, but they are there. I will change the names, the locations, the dates. Some of the people in these files still have families, but the stories themselves stay, because somebody should know. These are the buried archives. When I was 16, I came home from school, walked inside and was surprised to not see my mom despite her car being in the driveway. I walked through the living room towards the kitchen, and as I passed my little brother's room on the right, I saw the door was open, and I saw my mom sitting on their bed, lights off, facing the wall with her back to me. I stopped and stood in the doorway and said, "Mom," she said, really weakly, almost like she had just woken up. "Come here. I need to talk to you." I said, "Is everything okay?" And she replied, still looking at the wall and not moving, "Come here. I need to tell you something." Immediately, I thought the worst, that something had happened to one of my little brothers or my mama or something. I took half a step over the threshold into the room when I heard the back door open in the kitchen, turned my head to look, and saw my mom walk into the kitchen. She called out, "Hey honey, I got off early today. How was school?" My blood went ice cold in my veins and I couldn't bring myself to look back into my brother's room. I just pivoted my body and walked right into the kitchen and never looked back. But the entire time I had that feeling that something was right there next to me. Our house was always crazy haunted and had a ton of activity, but that was by far one of the most insane encounters I ever had. Similar to yours, also real, my son told me about the time he woke up, got dressed, and stepped into the hall to see me up ahead, walk into the study, then turn around and gesture for him to follow. He did so, wondering why I hadn't turned on the lights. As he neared the study, he detected movement to his right from the kitchen and turned to see me at the kitchen counter preparing breakfast. He said he felt as if the world had gone crazy. How was I in the kitchen if he had just seen me go in the study? Like you, he didn't dare look in that direction and instead bolted into the kitchen and wrapped himself around me, shaking. I remember that and asked him what was the matter. He was maybe 12, 13 at the time, and haltingly told me what he had seen. Not wanting him to be afraid, I set him down on one of the kitchen stools and strode into the study, angry that something had scared my child. There was nothing there, but the room felt unnaturally warm compared to the living room and kitchen. Never happened again. About 10 years ago, I went to bed in the family game room after playing some video games all night. I was about 18 at the time. My brother and cousin were home, but they were in the living room watching a movie, and at about 2 a.m. I called it quits and turned off all the lights, closed the door and went to sleep. About an hour later, I woke up to the sound of stomping outside the door and I could see the shadow of someone standing outside the door. At this point, I am frozen. I have experienced sleep paralysis before. This felt like that, but more primal. The door opens and I see the silhouette of what looks like my brother walk in. I let my guard down because it was not a rare occurrence for one of us to start gaming so late during the summer. However, I still can't move and I watch with my eyes as the silhouette stays dark and moves behind me and the couch, out of my path. Now I am freaking out and I feel what seems like the coarse bristles of a man's goatee, chin on the back of my neck and intense breathing. I tell whatever it is to stop or chill out, thinking it is my brother messing with me. After about 20 seconds of me not being able to move while this is happening, I immediately throw an elbow behind me and turn around to see nothing and no one there. The door was still closed and my brother and cousin were asleep in the living room. I still have dreams about it. It felt so surreal but grounded at the same time. I was disgusted afterwards. When I was younger, around 12 or 13, I was walking around my hometown at night with a group of my cousins and we saw a huge black figure walking in a park playground about 2 blocks away from us. It had to have been like 15 or 20 feet tall. It was horrifying and it was just walking around the playground. It walked behind the tallest structure on the playground and completely disappeared. And that's when me and my cousins finally decided to run. Fast forward a few years and I'm at Yellowstone National Park and in the corner of my eye I see the same tall figure, closer this time, running full speed between trees before passing behind a specific tree and disappearing again. Really weird, really creepy, right? Well, fast forward another couple of years and I'm parked in front of my house, looking at my phone because I don't feel like getting up and out of the car yet. And again, I see this figure run full speed between the 2 pillars. It just appeared behind the first pillar at a full sprint, and after going behind the second pillar it disappeared. About 20 feet away this time. This only really scares me because the figure was getting closer each time I saw it. And the last time I did see it, it was at my house. I had also liked to add a little side story about my house being haunted, but it's not really a story, it's more so just things that happen or have happened. I was alone downstairs and the lights went out for a split second and my pantry door creaked open. It was fully closed. Hearing footsteps going up the stairs and approaching bedroom doors. Multiple family members hear this. My 2-year-old niece looked out of my sister's bedroom window into our empty front yard and said it's a skeleton. TV, gaming consoles turning on when they haven't been touched by any of us in multiple days. My bed moved while I was on it. Something grabbed my friend's leg while we were sitting on the couch downstairs watching a movie.